A man of many names and just as many faces, with one characteristic, unsettlingly wide smile. Dr. Alto Clef has been one of the SCP Foundation's most valuable researchers. Granted, he also happens to be their most infamous and would almost take the title of their strangest member of personnel. In fact, Clef might be tied for the title of strangest with one other researcher who was literally turned into a dog. But what does an average day look like for the so-called Ukulele Man? Sure, somebody of Clef's reputation as a violent, unpredictable, and enigmatic figure doesn't just punch the clock at the Foundation and settle for a boring day filing paperwork. Well, if you've ever wondered what his normal schedule might look like, then luckily we've prepared a look at a day in the life of Dr. Alto Clef. 6 a.m. Rising at an hour most ordinary people would consider absurdly early, Alto Clef seemingly begins his day much like the rest of us. He sits up in bed, gets to his feet, and washes himself thoroughly to prepare for the day ahead. In order to make the most effective use of this time in the morning, despite being up at the break of dawn, Clef likes to complete smaller, trivial tasks in regards to his personal health hygiene. Although it does little to change the unsettling aura that follows him around, never let it be said that Dr. Clef doesn't take meticulous care of himself, perhaps even to a neurotic degree. He'll begin with exercise, usually trying to break his record for number of pull-ups and push-ups he can complete in a short amount of time. If he finds his face is a little puffy first thing in the morning, he'll instead don an ice pack while doing stomach crunches. His record for those, 1,000 in a row, and counting. Clef will then follow this up with showering, using this time under the water to meditate. It seems odd for someone known for his various acts of great violence, but even Alto Clef can take a moment for calm, reflective meditation. Then, while showering, he moves on to the application of a deep pore cleansing lotion, and is particularly fond of his honey almond body scrub. Then, exiting and applying an herb mint face mask, which he leaves on for 10 minutes as part of his routine, Dr. Clef engages in his strangest morning activity. While standing in front of the mirror in his private quarters, he will just stare at himself. It's certainly an odd action, especially spending such a specific allotment of time doing so. But even more unusual is how he seems to practice smiling. Whenever photographed, Dr. Alto Clef's face is always bizarrely replaced with that of a random animal or object. Each time the animal's face will be sporting a wide, almost abnormal grin, the same expression Clef practices in the mirror each morning. It is still unknown whether the concealment of his face to photography is an active or passive ability Dr. Clef possesses, whether he does it on purpose or can't help it. 8 a.m. Breakfast is usually a meal Clef skips. Instead of cereal or even a healthy piece of fruit, every morning he'll sustain himself on more vitamins than any normal human being would take in a week. We do not recommend trying this at home. Being awake so early affords Dr. Clef the luxury of a few moments downtime before the beginning of a long working day at the SCP Foundation. Part of Alto Clef's infamous reputation is he is known to be something of a weapons enthusiast, and often acts as a go-to executioner when the Foundation needs an anomaly taken care of. As a result, and as it pertains to his job, during Clef's morning downtime, he familiarizes himself with one of his favorite armament publications, Guns, Guns, and Oh Look, More Guns. Although how he acquires these magazines and indeed who actually publishes them is unknown. Alternatively, he will request SCP archive files to be delivered to his quarters so he can read up on any anomalies the Foundation has encountered that might have the potential to be weaponized. Of course, this is more just a hobby, not something Clef would actually attempt, unless asked to. But speaking of having things delivered to his room, it is normally around this time of the morning that a frightened member of D-Class is sent to knock on Dr. Clef's door. Now this too seems rather odd. The role of D-Class is to be expendable, usually as human test subjects for anomalies, placed in dangerous situations so as not to cost the lives of Foundation personnel. Then, of course, knocking on the door to Alto Clef's quarters is potentially a rather dangerous situation. It's hard to know for certain if the D-Class sent to hand-deliver Dr. Clef's daily itinerary will survive the encounter. Given his renowned unpredictability, it usually ends up being a 50-50 coin toss. Of course, it does beg the question, why doesn't the Foundation just send Clef an email to notify him what anomaly he'll be decommissioning? But then again, being handed a paper itinerary by a D-Class was something that Clef himself requested. 10 a.m. By late morning, Alto has normally finished cleaning up what was left of his ill-fated D-Class messenger, unless he was in the mood to spare them. Sure, killing them certainly seemed an excessive practice to engage in, but Clef had seemingly convinced the Foundation that it was necessary for him to function. It is obvious that this diabolical doctor is well aware of his usefulness to the Foundation. He has long proven himself to be highly proficient at dispatching dangerous anomalies with ease, so it's likely the Foundation fulfills his bloodthirsty requests thanks to that factor. After all, they would hardly be likely to offer up a sacrificial lamb, even a member of D-Class, to anyone else. Well, save for Dr. Bright's new body quota. But DrClef has always been capable of producing results that align with the Foundation's objectives, no matter the cost incurred. Clef has been known to deem any losses, even the deaths of civilians, to be acceptable collateral damage in order to kill or contain anomalies. And he's under no illusions that the Foundation wouldn't indulge his erratic behavior if not for his track record. However, not one in the Foundation knew for certain if DrClef even needed to start his day with such gratuitous violence. As well as being renowned as a killer, Clef was also a prolific liar. Were there legitimate reasons for him starting his day like this? Or was it all just a front, merely done so he could continue to promote his self-image as the Foundation's most ruthless researcher? The lack of a clear answer was widely considered to be frustrating to other members of Foundation personnel. 12 p.m. Noon, and after a few hours of tending to his duties as the department head for the Division of Training and Development, Clef usually takes a prompt lunch break. Every day, as the clock strikes exactly midday, on the precise hour of 12 o'clock, Dr. Alto Clef will stride into the mess hall. There, a number of Foundation researchers will normally be gathered, eating lunch and quietly conversing amongst themselves. Popular lunchtime topics of conversation usually tend to revolve around ways the Foundation could try to eliminate SCP-682, or which type of pie is being served in the commissary. On this particular day, it's apple pecan, in case you were wondering. Naturally, as with many things that DrClef does, his reasons for taking a trip into the mess hall aren't all the same as any normal person's. That is to say, he doesn't go there to eat, or at least in the conventional sense. What Alto Clef does every lunchtime without fail is deliberately and methodically pace his way around the mess hall. In his hands is his ukulele, the instrument from which his various monikers have been derived. Ukulele Man, Agent Ukulele, even Alto Clef is a nickname. The doctor has always claimed his real name is an A major chord played on a ukulele, making it unpronounceable to humans. With his preferred instrument in hand, Clef will plod between the tables that eating researchers are sitting at. Each step he takes is punctuated by the strum of a note on his ukulele, as he'll play a random song painfully slowly as he strides around. One lunchtime, it took him an entire 2 hours to get through a rendition of Smoke on the Water, note by agonizing note. Even though it doesn't seem to be a meal in the traditional sense, meaning it offers him no nutritional value, Clef professes that his midday ritual allows him to feed on the fear of his fellow researchers. Seeing him creepily walk around and playing slow, drawn-out renditions of songs on his ukulele is occasionally something that intimidates the newer personnel at the Foundation. But anyone who has been there for long enough just finds it annoying, which might be Clef's intention, that or simply fueling his own ego. 1:30 p.m. Usually by the time an hour and a half have elapsed from the start of his lunch break, Alto Clef will reluctantly return to his work. He'll often proceed over the course of a mid-afternoon to conduct research into the latest reality warping anomaly he has been tasked with decommissioning for that day. It was during one such time of day that he came upon with his plan for the now infamous SCP-239 incident. An anomalous girl was recovered by the Foundation with the ability to alter reality specifically relating to her or her immediate surroundings. DrClef viewed SCP-239 as a threat to security, and that the Foundation repeatedly overestimated its ability to contain reality-altering entities. So Clef proposed a plan involving a sharp implement made out of SCP-148, a metal that could block certain anomalous properties. Clef even volunteers himself to terminate SCP-239 personally, and would have succeeded had the Foundation not intervened. Most of the plans Dr. Alto Clef devised usually placed emphasis on eliminating anomalies instead of containing them or making them safe. Additionally, his schemes almost always end in a large number of deaths, either of disposable D-Class personnel or of civilians. On this particular day, DrClef had been tasked with an assignment he found to be particularly egregious: curing something. Namely SCP-451, a former Foundation agent who suffered an accident with an anomalous artifact that made him unable to perceive other people around him. The agent quickly came to the conclusion that he was the last surviving person on the planet, and that he was responsible for wiping out the human race. Naturally, Clef's proposed solution to the problem was to simply kill SCP-451. He could still be seen by other Foundation staff, but nobody could interact with him directly. It was as though the artifact had caused a reality warping event focused solely on that one agent, shifting him just outside of reality itself. However, after spending hours brainstorming a way to decommission SCP-451, another researcher reminded DrClef that the agent could no longer be killed. As a result, in a fit of madness, Clef instead killed that researcher, before continuing as if he had been unfazed by that information. 4 p.m. Despite normally having done barely enough work to justify it, at this point in his day, Clef often likes to treat himself to an additional unearned break. As with much of his regular flouting of rules, he often rationalizes the extra time off with the knowledge that he is apparently untouchable. Clef knows there is very little the Foundation can do to reprimand him, given both his status as a high-value researcher and his historical track record for dealing with anomalies. Simultaneously, he liked to exercise his immunity to both consequences and the effects of certain anomalies. Part of what makes Clef such a valuable asset to the SCP Foundation is not just his extensive knowledge of reality warpers, although he is considered perhaps the leading expert in such SCPs, but Alto has also been known to negate the anomalous abilities of some SCPs, rendering him unaffected in the same way ordinary researchers are. Much like his fellow long-standing Foundation scientist colleague Dr. Jack Bright, this has rendered Clef largely indestructible and unharmable to a majority of anomalies, allowing him to continue his tenure at the Foundation for a considerable time. As a result of this natural immunity, it is often during this part of his day that DrClef likes to pay visits to a former romantic flame, SCP-173. Yes, the sculpture, the concrete and rebar anomaly capable of moving at impossible speeds when unobserved. DrClef and SCP-173 have what you might call a, special bond, although the sculpture seems somewhat indifferent to him given that it cannot move. Clef, however, has been known to be infatuated with SCP-173, able to view it without being harmed. The unlikely couple have even, on a number of occasions, shared romantic evenings in each other's company. In the dining room of Site-19, listening to Barry White and enjoying an exquisite meal prepared by a D-Class, Clef enjoyed the company of SCP-173, the sculpture wearing a black dress and a blonde wig. Every week, he looked forward to Friday, their date night. 7 p.m. Okay, let's see the damage today. Dr. Gears sighs. By this point in the day, one of the last few orders of business on DrClef's itinerary was always his daily, mandatory reprimand. Despite there being little punishments that the Foundation could issue Alto with for both his annoying and alarming actions, they would still regularly subject Clef to a list of his recent rule violations and casualties. At this time of 7 p.m., we've logged over 50 confirmed instances of personnel deaths on site. Dr. Gears reads aloud, rolling his eyes. Only 50? I must have had a slow day. Clef responds. That is, if you're sure your numbers are right. Clef, this game of yours doesn't get any less tiring, the other researcher tells him. If you killed anyone else today, please just cut to the chase and tell me how many. Oh, and if you think that it's funny to keep stashing bodies all over the place, then 1, it's not, and 2, I need to know where those are too. Oh, and 3, just try for once for the sake of my sanity to tell the truth. Oh, Charlie, you're no fun, DrClef replies with a chuckle. This is fun to you? Gears asks. This? Right here? Right now? Of course not, you know me better than that. Look, we both know the reason that the folks upstairs get you to sit me down, give me a scolding. It's all just a front. Just a way to stop any of those other little researchers getting any big ideas. The Council can't bear the thought of anyone else trying to do as I do. There's only one DrClef, and we both know there's nothing anyone in the Foundation can do to stop me having fun. My numbers are just too good. Speaking of your numbers, Gears ignores him. It says here you've received 420 complaints about the ukulele playing. You want to cut to the chase and tell me how many of these were filed by you as pranks? First off, nice. Second off, Aw, Charlie, you do know me. 8 p.m. As very often happens around the time that most personnel have punched their cards for the day, DrClef is approached by a trembling researcher, trying hard to hide the fear on their face. While starting as a more intermittent occurrence, encounters like this have become so frequent that they have since come to form a regular part of Clef's daily routine. I'm on to you, Clef, the researcher said nervously. They were the latest in a long line of Foundation staff to confront DrClef about his supposed true nature. Given his violent and unpredictable behavior, there were rampant rumors that there was more to him than it first seemed. Come on then, kid, he says. I haven't got all night, let's hear what you think you've got. You were with the Global Occult Coalition before you defected to the Foundation, the researcher declared, summoning up more courage, even if it was a facade. You wrote their handbook on reality benders, but nobody in the world could have that much knowledge about anomalies like that, unless they were also one. Ooh, spooky, DrClef taunts, inching closer with his ukulele in one hand. The Foundation literally let you get away with murder. Your face can't be photographed without changing the image into grinning animals. You're... Go on, you can do it, Clef urges. You're an anomaly, an SCP. You've broken out of containment, and you're warping reality to avoid detection, the researcher blurts out, adding, You're the devil! Oh, I'm disappointed, Clef chortles, finding this theory amusing. You almost stuck the landing. Why throw in something so unoriginal? Let me ask you, do you honestly think you're the first? The only one in the Foundation to, connect all the dots and figure out the truth behind Alto Clef? You aren't. If I was an anomaly, or the devil, aren't I being a little too obvious about it? With a clunk of a ukulele against the researcher's head, Clef gets one more decommissioning in before bedtime. Perhaps there is some truth to what he says. Maybe his power isn't just his immortality or combat prowess, or immunity to anomalies. It could be how he's been able to influence everyone's perception of him, even manipulating the O5 Council into thinking he's too big of a threat. His actions have made them believe that DrClef is better kept on side, as an asset, than to roam free as a dangerous enemy to the Foundation. That could be what he wants them to think, even if it's not true. After all, Alto Clef is a notorious liar. His entire persona could be the ultimate lie. 10 p.m. After another day of murder and mayhem, mostly of his own doing, Dr. Alto Clef returns to his quarters long after the working day is officially over. After disposing of the evidence of his latest decommissioning, he makes his way back to the room he started the day in, and will start the next one in too. But if you think that Clef just gets into pajamas, hops in bed, and has a full 8 hours of sleep like a normal person, then you'd be way, way off. Firstly, on his way back to his room, Clef will once again have his ukulele with him, strumming sinisterly away at the strings so everyone knows as they try to sleep in their own quarters that he's still awake. What's worse is at this time of night, Alto intentionally mistunes his instrument, making it all the more egregious to hear, keeping the other researchers up until he finally makes it back to his own quarters. You might think he would have the sense to stop there, but he doesn't, still discordantly and tunelessly plucking at the strings, usually until someone dares to gather up the bravery to complain about the noise. All of it is to add fuel to the fire of his reputation, his image as an unhinged, unreasonable, and untrustworthy force. His behavior is also carefully curated and performed with the intention to make the rest of the Foundation believe there is something off about him. And why? Well, if they're so focused on the strange things they can see and hear DrClef doing, it provides a smokescreen that covers up his true goals, all the dark and twisted things he is truly capable of. And if killing anomalies and personnel is his cover, one can only imagine what might be worse than that. Much in the same vein, even him retreating to his quarters at the end of the day is designed to get in the heads of the rest of the Foundation. Maybe because Clef really is the devil, or a reality-warping SCP, or perhaps he just enjoys messing with people, making them think he's going to sleep. Not one of them knows that he's actually laying in bed, eyes fixed open as wide as possible, with his face locked in that signature grin. Now go and check out DrClef SCP Foundation Researcher and A Day in the Life of SCP-049 for more deep dives on Foundation favorites.